Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you're all doing great and you're following the 3 H's of the channel. In this video, I have 3 terrifying encounters from the UK. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, pull up a stump with me and let's get into it. Thank you for watching. So I don't normally encourage this type of stuff, and I've always been a firm ignorance is bliss kind of guy. I've seen ghosts before, I've seen spirits, and they've never really bothered me. It never really bothered me, because I would just shut it out and carry on with my day. However, there is one encounter that I have never been able to forget, and that still freaks me out to this day. I live in the UK, and I used to live in a nice area just outside of a big city. It was sort of in the countryside, but kind of not. There was always this one part of the woods that always gave weird vibes. There was an inexplicable and unexplainable feeling that you really shouldn't be there. One 420, me and a few friends decided that it would be a great idea to go to the quote spot, as we referred to it, get set up and have a tent, just have a good time. It probably got around 1 a.m., and being tired and stoned, I decided to just walk home, since I lived 10 minutes away. I remember I left by myself, and I started on the path home. The area where we had set up was wooded, a lot of high bushes, and it's a good mile away from really any house. And I don't know if it's important, but it's also near an army firing range. I remember walking down the path, flashlight on my phone shining the way, when I felt what I can only describe as pure fear. It felt like my whole body was telling me that I had to leave this area as fast as I could, or else I was going to end up dead. Now I know that this could have been the weed making me paranoid, but when I used to smoke, I never experienced anything like this, before or after. Anyway, I started running as fast as I could, and I could hear what sounded like galloping running behind me. I couldn't see it, but I could feel that it was getting closer and closer to me, and that I was definitely in danger. I managed to get to the clearing that was about 100 meters near the main road, and as soon as I got there, I quickly turned around to see what was chasing me, and I remember seeing this tall, pale, bony creature standing still at the top of the clearing, just watching me. It must have been 8 feet tall, and it had these massive eyes that reflected the light. I never told anyone what I saw, because I knew that no one would believe me, and every time I walked past the clearing, I still felt like I was being watched. However, a few years later, me and my friend were discussing paranormal events. I told him what had happened, and we decided to go there. It was during the day, and it was nice out. We got to the area and ventured in deeper, only complaining that we got a weird vibe, but nothing to be concerned about. However, as we got deeper, we came across what can only be described as a tunnel of trees that led to a round clearing with a single tree growing in the middle. Nothing else. All the other vegetation was totally dead. As we started to walk through the quote tunnel, what can only be described as a face appeared through the vegetation, staring at us. We both got a good look at it, and we both saw a long, sunken face with large, jet black eyes staring at us. It only had slits for a nose. We both bolted and got the hell out of there. To this day, we haven't spoken about it, and I just want to know what the hell it was. Somehow I know it was watching and observing. It was definitely predatory, and is a thing of pure evil. I can feel it. This was sent in to me by Anonymous, so I hope I can do your story justice. It's me again. You once told a true story of mine. It was one of my first stories ever told online, on your channel. So I have another weird one, as I have a lot of weird stuff happen in my life. I love your channel. Oh, thank you. And I watch all the uploads. So give it a read, see if you have any answers as to what occurred. Strange times we're in, unexplainable by me, no clue. So I don't know how to explain this. I walk regularly in my local woods in East Anglia, United Kingdom. Once a week in general, we walk between 4 to 7 miles, but now we've had a few strange things happen when we walk in the forest. A few miles into the woodland, which is about 8 miles square, it's not that busy with the public. This last walk, we saw 4 people, 3 very near the road, about half a mile in, 1 deeper, probably from a local village, closer to that side of the woods, the east side. As we walk, I'm very aware of my surroundings, sights, smells, and sounds. A few times as we walked, we experienced complete silence, no sounds, no birds, no animals, nothing. This I always point out and make my friend and his dog stop. Weird, he and I think. Just silence. But we carry on walking. Eventually the sounds return, the birds, the wind, etc. I spot down the path, a point where it looks like nothing unusual has ever happened, normal to say like any other spot. But as you walk into and up to it, it's like you walked through a sweet smell, almost like a vape, or sweet flowers, or the sweetest essence you've ever smelled. It's an aroma, but you can also taste it. It's like icing flour on your tongue. This sweet smell was in front of me a meter, and behind me a meter or so, but nowhere before or after this area. Just this one spot, so distinct that my friend and I moved around it, back through it, back and forth, talked about its localized area. It's hyper sweet to taste and breathe in, but there's nothing anywhere that could have made the smell, let alone explain why you can taste it. So sweet too. There was nothing about but forest left and right, a slightly dry, muddy path beneath our feet, with little grass patches on it. The trees above and around us, but there was nothing that does or is in flower, nothing that could make this happen. But in the air, this beautiful thick sweet essence and taste. Weird, we think. It's puzzling, but we move on yet again, bewildered. A few hundred meters down the path, a wall I can only describe as putrid excrement hits your nose. Luckily, you couldn't taste this one. Again, weird. It was a localized area a few meters. You walk in and smell it, walk past and nothing. Again, nothing up and down or anywhere that could make the horrid thick smell. We queried it again, both of us bemused. It's not making any sense, yet it overwhelms your senses. Strange. Onward we go, carry on walking. It's a humanish but damp day, not a lot of sunshine, almost like a typical English autumn day. We walked out to the farthest east that we usually go, and we went back up into some thicker woods. We started seeing structures and crosses. I often note these, but pass them off as that kids could have done it. Possibly the wind, maybe rot and old age on some of them, but I still mentally and verbally note them. We're walking back towards the south front of the woods, but still a mile or so in. We stop and check out a pine tree that had just good tinderwood on it, dried at the base. We were noting how good it would be for getting a fire going. We've both been on bushcrafting courses, so it's that tree and a bigger tree left, and 4 connecting pathways at angles, but virtually all meeting in the front and the side of the trees. One of them runs down the side of the trees that we're at. Before this, a different path is further up. It looked like, out of the corner of your eye, just for a second, you could see a black mass that crossed right to left, the same way that we're going, but very fast, like a whoosh. We couldn't see it, it was just a movement, but both of us saw something. The mass was blurred and fast. We again noted this, but thought not a lot of it, and that it was strange. We leave the trees where we looked at the tinderwood, and we carry on walking, and then 100 or so feet away from them, and from that side path, came this call. It's like 2 in the afternoon, but the call was very loud, and deep. It sounded exact as exact can be, just like an owl, but it sounds huge, like a 6-foot tall owl. There's two very distinct calls, and then silence. Nothing moves or runs off, and you couldn't see anything down the side path. Both of us turn in at the first call and are shocked at the second. The dogs are looking the same way we are, up the path near the tree. That's not an owl, I said, unless it's a 6-foot tall owl. The depth and sound was giant sounding. Not a real owl, but massive. We chuckle, but also check our watches and see that it's 2:30 p.m. Weird time for an owl, I said, but also there's still no movement. There's no large owl to be seen. Nothing has left the area at all. Just strange. There's two people, a couple 100 feet or more up the trail. They have a dog, but it wasn't them. And they're walking along the white road where we were on. It was up that path where the sound came from, but they were nowhere near it. They didn't even react to it, so it wasn't them who made it. The only other people are an elderly couple that are walking their golden dog. They're a few 100 feet back. They're kind of on this wood horizon line where there's a mini slope that brings them into view. The whole thing is strange, puzzling us both. We walk off chuckling about how loud it was and how big it sounded, but only 2 calls, and then nothing. Funny, eh? Onward walking, I got my bull roarer out, as I remembered that I packed it. I did a few rounds, and I let it permeate the forest. My friend, never hearing or seeing one before, both him and the dog were transfixed on the sound and turning motion above my head. It sounded amazing. A bull roarer was used by Aboriginal tribes for communication. It makes a deep whirling sound. It has a lower frequency, and I made this one. So we keep on walking for 1.5 miles or more. My friend wants to smoke and water his dog, just to let it drink. So we sat down in the forest again near a path, but just in the woods. This side is more open to the path, like 20 feet in. The dog gets watered, my mate has a smoke, but whilst he's smoking, some twigs start snapping behind him and in front of me. The dog is staring in the woodland gap ahead and then left of me. It then seems as if there's movement and leaves floating down from the trees, whistles and snaps, but it seems all around us, in like a 30-foot circle. It's like a swirling wind and offbeat noises. Leaves start falling from trees, but we can see everything in that distance and there's nothing there. It's a strange, almost zone of energy, a circle of just something different that you can notice, but we don't see anything there. Nobody, even with all the stick cracks. This was highly noted by me. Again, my statement was, this is effing weird. It's been a weird day in the forest today, I say. My friend says, with you in the forest, there seems to be more weird stuff happening every time. Always weirder. I don't normally notice it, but since walking with you, more weird stuff definitely happens. I laughed a little. Other things that we noted were a lot of alarm calls from birds all day as we walked around. Most of them I attribute to just the dog or just us being there, walking in the forest. But now I don't know what. We start walking again and leave the woods, make it back to my van. We're still talking about all the stuff that had gone on today, and some of the stuff that happened to me before, which was strange. He and I have no explanation for how a taste or sweet smell can be localized and nothing be there to make it, or how you walk into a wall of localized smell of excrement and filth, which vanishes in steps, but walking backwards, it hits you again, nothing to make it, or how an owl that sounds to be 6 feet tall, 2:30 in the afternoon, but loud and deep and big, but exactly like an owl to a T, almost like a representation of an owl call. It's weird. This was a weird walk with a friend, which we will do every week, even just to see if things get weirder or not. So thank you to Anonymous for sending that in. I hope I could do your story justice. Alright, here we go. This is the scariest thing that I've ever experienced. I'm out camping with some buddies up in North England. I know it sounds stereotypical, but bear with me. There's about 4 of us. Mark, me, Lucas, and James. These are all my friends. We haven't really been camping before, in all honesty. It took us 3 hours to set up 3 tents because we have absolutely no clue what to do. Our car is about a 20-minute walk down a dirt path. Not really far, but the trees make it hard to see. This is important later. James forgot to bring firewood, so we sent him out with an axe to get some. He's pretty strong. He goes to the gym pretty often. Mark goes with him. So they head off into the woods toward a clearing. It was a clearing that we had spotted while walking about a while ago, searching for a good spot to set up. We didn't choose that spot as we had no trees to prevent rain from drenching the tents and fire. And in case you didn't know, it rains like hell in England. So Mark and James are out collecting firewood. It's just me and Lucas chilling, drinking, and all that stuff. About an hour later, Mark and James come back. They don't have the axe. I asked James where he put it, as he was the one holding it when they walked away. He asks Mark the same thing. Mark asks him. Lucas points out that it's leaning against a tree not 3 meters away. It looks weird, like a glitched texture in a video game. It's kind of blurred, if you get what I mean. We brush it off because Mark picks it up and it looks normal, so I don't really bring it up any further. Nothing really happens. We go to bed early due to a lack of fire to sit around. We had all 4 tents up by now. I wake up in the night for really no reason. But then I notice that there's no sounds, there's no bugs or anything like that. It's as if somebody hit the mute button. Honest to God, I clapped and I couldn't hear it. I tried to talk and I couldn't hear that either. I checked. I was worried for my hearing, so I go back to sleep to see if I'm just going to be okay in the morning. But James wakes me up. What were you clapping at? I said, oh, I for some reason couldn't hear anything, so I was trying to see if I lost my hearing. And then he says, I'm not surprised. We were up until around 4 around the campfire, and you kept screaming and laughing at it. I said, we didn't have a campfire last night. He says, yeah, we did. There's remains of a fire outside in the middle of the tents. It's kind of warm, like it was recently put out. I'm actually scared by this point. I can't reason with the situation. There was no, oh, I was tired. We literally didn't have a campfire. So I just sit down, trying to process all of this. Mark, James, and Lucas are all talking. They notice me kind of sitting there. Mark asks me what's up. I say, we did not have a fire last night. He says, what? I said there was no fire. He says, I know. James chimes in here. He says there was a fire. You guys sat by it with me all last night. Lucas also chimes in. No, the F we didn't. All 3 of us do not remember a fire, but James insists that there was. He gets kinda mad and goes back into his tent. Me, Mark, and Lucas just leave him be to chill. We head out to that clearing earlier. Lucas heads back to the car to get a pocket knife. He wants to do some carving and stuff. He likes to sharpen sticks and all that kind of thing. We watch him go down the path. We only see his head after a while because the trees block off his body. He ducks under a low branch, but doesn't come back up. We just continue on to the clearing, assuming that he just kept low to not hit his head or something. But we get there, and Lucas is there. He was 10 minutes away. We were 3 minutes from the clearing. We say, how the hell did you get here so fast? He says, I've been walking with you since you left camp. And we say, no, you didn't. We just watched you leave to go to the car. And he says, I really didn't. I walked with you guys. But now Mark speaks up in kind of a whisper. He says, guys, that's not Lucas. Look. He kind of tilts his head toward the path to the car. Lucas is by the car. We see his head inside it. He's looking for his pocket knife. Whatever is stood with us sees Lucas also. It throws its head back and opens its mouth. It emits this high-pitched sound, like a dog whistle, but for humans. I collapse due to its loudness. My vision begins to go white. The sound won't stop. And then I wake up, back at camp. Mark, Lucas, and James are all there, around a fire. Mark asks if I'm okay. I say, "What the hell was that thing?" He says, "What was what?" I said, "The thing that knocked us out." He says, "Man, me and you walked out to the clearing and you passed out. I brought you back." At this point, I now require new pants because I'm officially pissing myself. I'm so scared. I'm at the brink of tears. This is messing with my head, and I'm a bit of a pussy. I go into my tent to sleep, or to try, at least. I just lay there for a while, once again, trying to process this. Hours pass. It felt like minutes to me. Once again, all sound stops. Even Mark, James, and Lucas talking outside. I poke my head out of the tent. I see them moving, as if talking and laughing. I duck my head back in. The same high-pitched sound that the thing in the clearing made is there, but it's not as loud. It doesn't hurt this time. I'm shitting enough bricks to build a 4-bedroom house at this point. I lay down and let everything pass. The sound fades off, as if it was walking by. I begin to regain my hearing, and then I hear sounds like a tent being opened hurriedly. James is practically ripping my tent open. He says, "Man, get up, we're leaving now." I stand up, but I'm super weak. I'm overwhelmed by everything that's happening, trying to rationalize why my body is doing this. Mark and Lucas are combat sprinting to the car. James has my arm around him, and we're shuffling as fast as possible. I say, "James, what the hell's going on?" He says, "Shut up, just be quiet, it'll hear us." I'm on the verge of tears. Like I said, I'm usually a pussy. We get to the car after around 17 minutes of shuffling. Mark and Lucas are already in it. The car is running. They motion for us to get in. I'm in the back seat with James at my side. Mark is driving, Lucas in the passenger seat. Mark floors it along this dirt roadish kind of thing that leads to a highway, about 10 minutes from the campgrounds. I look out the back window out of paranoia to reassure myself that we're not being followed. And what do I see but this amalgamation of the 4 of us? It's a face made up of our faces. And I promise you, I'm not on any drugs. I've been clean for life. But this thing's face is our 4 faces, almost melted together. My vision goes white again, like I just got flashbanged. Whatever this thing is, it didn't want to be seen in this state. There's a high-pitched sound again, causing absolute agony. I get a massive headache from it. Mark is flooring it away from the site, and we get to the highway. Every now and then, my vision will blur. I'm thinking that it's following us. The high-pitched sound hasn't stopped. It's just not loud enough to hurt anymore. I hear it the whole ride home. Mark doesn't slow down. It's an empty highway, so he just speeds. I swear that I see this thing following the car by the tree line at the side of the highway. It's facing the car, kind of almost sliding across the ground. It looks as if a video game character's walking animation broke, and it just stopped working, and now it's glitching out. Every time I see it, the high-pitched sound increases in volume until I look away, and my vision goes white after 2 seconds of staring. Eventually, I stop seeing it 3 miles from my home. I never go back, ever. Me and James kind of fell out of contact after that. Mark doesn't talk very much, but when he does, he has a stutter now. Lucas is quiet, but seems kind of unbothered. I'm scared as all hell about this. It was years ago. I don't go outside much anymore either. The whole thing screwed with us mentally, but believe it or not, this happened, and my mental state ain't as stable as it used to be as a result. Typing this almost gave me a panic attack. But it doesn't end there. For the sake of getting everything out there, I did reach out to James again. We had a phone call. His story is a little different. He says that we were at the camp. This was around the time that my hearing cut out, and after that he ducked back into his tent. An hour passes. They see the thing that I saw off in the woods. It was running at like Mach 9, exaggeration, toward a fox. It grabs the fox and rips its chest open and eats the thing there and then, bones and all. They go quiet. It spots them and slides off into the woods. He starts shaking. They spot it again. 2 minutes later, it's staring and twitching. He swears that they heard a low gurgling sound, like its throat was full of thick liquid, like tar. It slides off again after letting out a loud screech that I didn't hear for some reason. He rips my tent open and grabs me. He carried me to the car. I was totally unconscious. He's scared as hell. He's trying to sprint, but trying to be quiet. Mark and Lucas are way ahead. He looks back, and this thing is at the camp, and it's inside my tent, going through my stuff. We get to the car. He throws me in and gets in beside me. I wake up after we get to the highway. I scream at something out the window, and I pass out again. We repeat this for about an hour, me waking up, seeing something, screaming, and passing out. At some point, I looked at him, made that gurgling sound like the thing made, and passed out again. This scared him enough to not want to talk to me for a long-ass time. He was sure and thought that it possessed me. Anyway, we get home. Mark drops him off at his house, and he stays there. They get family and friends to buy food for him, and he pays them the money. He refused to leave his house for a long while, and then was in therapy for a longer while. Then after an even longer time, we have this conversation, and now here we are. Sometime, I want to try and talk to Mark and Lucas to get their side to the story. But as you can tell, it was very traumatizing for all of us. So those encounters were all pretty intense, weren't they? If there was one that stuck out to you the most, let me know which one it was down in the comments. If you have one of your own, I have an email in the description below that you can send them to if you'd like to. Also down there is a PayPal and a Patreon if you would like to support the channel that way. And with all of that mentioned, I think I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for pulling up a stump, and thank you for watching. Have a good weekend and have a good week.